we are going to be talking about the devious, tyrannical, incompetent King John.
And he is all those things.
I know.
In history, it's a really easy pitfall to think someone's great or brilliant and did nothing wrong, and they're a hero. And it's really easy also to fall into, conversely, that someone's just an out-and-out baddie.
Yes.
Completely irredeemable. But some people do fall into both those camps, don't they?
Yes.
Some people are completely innocent and kind of only did amazing things. And some people are completely irretrievable. For me, John is very close to that, if not that. There's very, very few things he did that seem to have been good or just or noble, and a massive laundry list of true crimes.
But also, it seems like administrative incompetence as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost France. So.
We've said before, there's lots of people where it seems like whatever they touch turns to gold.
Yeah, he's the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the opposite.
He really is. Yeah. Nearly everything he tried failed.
Yeah.
Nearly always. It must be really frustrating. Because most normal people like you or I, you're neither of those things, right? Yeah. You just go through the world normally and some things work, some things don't work out for you. It must be nice to have that Midas touch, like Richard.
Well, yeah.
Or like Alexander or Wellington or something. But it must be really frustrating as well to be one of those people where everything you try turns to crap. It makes you look stupid and humiliated.
Okay, but the thing is, that's the consequence of not learning from your mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the consequence of being either arrogant or ignorant. And
that's one of the things said about John, is that he didn't seem to learn, really. That is one of the sort of the broader things to say about him.
Yeah.
Very broadly, because I'm going to quote here massively from Oman today, because it happens to be, in my opinion, one of his best chapters is on John.
Yeah.
So I did loads of Churchill last time. So anyway, so one of the most broad criticisms of him is that he couldn't trust anyone. And all sorts of problems stem from that. If you're sort of pathologically incapable of trusting anyone, it means no one can, apart from anything else, it means no one can trust you back.
Yeah.
It means you're constantly paranoid, even if you might have good cause to be paranoid. If you're paranoid about everyone always, then you can never ever build a foundational sort of base of power or support.
I suppose if he hadn't inherited quite a stable kingdom, then maybe that would be reasonable. But I mean, his brother could trust people. His brother was well loved. It doesn't seem that England was rife with political faction necessarily. I mean, like not obviously there are political factions, but it's like bloody division where brothers are stabbing each other in the night or something like this. That just doesn't seem to have been the case. So it seems to be a pathology of John himself. And not a problem with the nation. Yeah.
Seems like if there was political faction, it was because he made it.
Yeah, he was the political faction.
Yeah. It seems like he always mistrusted everyone, or in his own mind, always erred on the side of assuming you're about to stab him in the back.
Yeah.
And so he treated you with sort of cold contempt, or something like that.
That's probably because he stabbed people in the back.
Yeah. It's a reflection of
his own
yourself, right?
Internal,
When you assume everyone is evil, it's like,
I think
you don't know any better than that. I don't know.
The only common link in the chain here is you, John. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, one first paragraph then from Oman, he said, quote, Richard the Lion-Hearted left two male kinsmen to dispute about his vast domains. These were Arthur of Brittany, the son of his next brother, Geoffrey, the one that died in a joust of an accident, and John of Cornwall. Just quickly say, he's got a few names, hasn't he? John Lackland, often called, John of Cornwall, John Lord of Ireland, Prince John and King John. Anyway, Oman decides to call him Cornwall here. And John of Cornwall, his false and turbulent youngest brother. The English Great Council chose John as king without any hesitation. And we were told that Richard did name him albeit not sort of formally and legally in writing or anything, but did say, apparently anyway, that he bequeaths England at least to John. The great council of England, they would not take Arthur, a mere boy of 12, who had never been seen in England. They preferred John in spite of his great and obvious faults. But in the continental dominions of Richard, there was no such unanimity. The unruly barons of Anjou and Aquitaine thought they would gain through having a powerless boy to reign over them, rather than the unscrupulous and grasping Earl John. If it had not been for the old Queen Dowager, Eleanor of Aquitaine, who came forward to defend her best-loved son's claims and to persuade her Gascon vassals to adhere to his cause, John would never have obtained any hold on the continent. By Eleanor's aid, he triumphed for a moment, but baron after baron rose against him, using Arthur's name as his pretense. And civil war never ceased from the moment of John's accession. So that's sort of the sort of immediate events that happened on the death of Richard. But if it's all right, we'll go back and just talk a little bit about his sort of earlier life. Won't do it in too much detail because we've already done it a bit, haven't we?
He's come up a lot.
In case you're just watching this video and none of the others. So he was the youngest of the 4 boys of Henry II. And he was a fair bit younger though.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a break between Geoffrey and John. So there was the oldest one, Henry the young king, then Richard, then this Geoffrey, and then John. And he was sort of born to the purple, so Henry II had already been king for something like 15 odd years by the time John's born. And even by the time Henry II dies, John's still quite young, he's sort of under 20. So you're old enough, you're a man, and you're old enough to fight and sort of set up a standard in your own right and all that sort of thing. But he's still a stripling compared to Richard, let's say, compared to a lot of the great men of the age like William Marshall and stuff.
A lot of the great men of the age who have been in his family and are his brothers or father, or are closely associated with his brothers and father. So there's a part of me that does have a bit of sympathy in this regard, because he's got a lot of tough acts to follow. You know, he has got a lot of tough acts to follow. Like, you know, Henry's one of the greatest leaders of the age, and then his brother, the crusading, gallant Chad, King Richard. It's like, who just can't be defeated in battle. It's like, oh man, you know, just like this. And his other brothers were just impressive men in their own right. So it's just, I can understand why someone would end up being a bit resentful, maybe. I'm not saying it excuses anything.
No, sure.
But it is a series of tough acts to follow.
And I see that, I get that as well. I mean, in my own life, my own personal experiences, there's not one tiny 0.1% of that in my life and my family that I'm overshadowed by anyone. So it just never really factors into...
Yeah, I know, I'm not.
Right, so. But it must be bad though.
Yeah.
If like your granddad was FDR or something.
Yeah. But then your dad was Kennedy. You know,
right.
Like, that's the thing, because all John's life, people would be like, "Oh, your dad's incredible, your brother's incredible," like, and he's what about me?
John?
Yeah, King John.
Oh, I thought you were talking about John Kennedy.
No, but like it's the same sort of principle. Like, everyone's going to be talking to you about your father or your heroic brother, and you're like, I'm just sick of hearing of them, to be honest. You know, like everyone would have been obsessing over them.
Yeah.
So.
It must be, especially if it's a very, very close family member, like your older brother.
Yeah. Or your dad. Like, it's not even a remote an uncle or something. No.
Just a quick aside. Lots of people always said that George W. Bush, his whole life was, is in the shadow of Bush Senior.
That's true.
He was head of the CIA and obviously president and all that sort of thing, a fighter pilot and everything. But he was a one-term president. And when W got re-elected, you could see how happy he was, because finally, on some level...
surpassed his dad.
Right.
Yeah.
As I say, I've never had that sort of chip on my shoulder to deal with. But it must be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And John certainly, it seems anyway, not certainly, but it does seem he suffered from. He was very, very bitter and resentful towards Richard. He would have been. He must have been. Not only that the world sort of sorry,
and his dad probably.
Yeah. Not only that the world recognises his father and brother as great men, but he knows deep down they're greater people than him.
Oh yeah.
The other thing to say, where he's much younger and the fourth son, he was never, all through his childhood and formative years, he was never supposed to be king.
Yeah.
He was never ever, people would have thought there's no way he'll ever actually be.
Should have been Henry's boys, and then it should have been Richard's boys, or what was the other one, Geoffrey?
The young King Henry, he should have had boys. He
exactly.
should have had kids and would have gone down through that line.
Any of his three older brothers you would think would have had children. One of them would have been a son, and therefore, so you're just going to be a prince your whole life. And
well, I did mention one. Well, so the young king didn't have any. Richard didn't have any, incredibly, because he seems to have been
a shagger.
A very, very high level philanderer. Yeah. So it's sort of incredible he didn't have any legitimate children anyway. But the third brother, Geoffrey, did. And Arthur.
Yeah.
Arthur of Brittany.
Yeah.
Because Geoffrey's sort of, Henry II had given Geoffrey Brittany, basically, or by marriage he'd got it. And anyway, there's this Arthur. And if you're going to be strict about it, after Richard the Lionheart dies, it should go to that Arthur. But he was still too young, and John's just not going to have that. And as I mentioned there, Eleanor of Aquitaine, who's old now, she's like in her 80s, is she?
Yeah, she's going to be getting on.
She hasn't got too many years left, but she's in her 80s, and she's still a power broker.
Yeah, she's still fiddling in the background.
She's still sort of in control of Aquitaine and stuff. So, and she preferred John over Arthur. So I don't think she really had any power over Arthur. So, yeah. So when John is about 10 years old, Henry makes him Lord of Ireland. All of Ireland. Because that was one of Henry II's sort of very deliberate policies, strategies, wasn't it? Was to give all of his sons bits of the Angevin Empire, and to marry his daughters off to the best people he could. Whether that was the best policy or not to do that, but anyway, that's what he did. And I mentioned earlier, John's got a few different names, known by a few different things. Roman called him Earl John there, didn't he, at one point? But John Lackland is one of them, because his older brothers all had massive domains and he had nothing. Well, it was not really particularly the case. So at the age of 10, he was made, at least nominally, the Lord of Ireland.
Yeah, what that means in practice, probably not all that much.
It's just a title.
Did he even ever go to Ireland?
Did he never ever go to Ireland? I think he did go to Ireland at some point. I'm sure he did. But yeah, there was no an Irish campaign or anything.
Yeah, or just an administration.
Right, certainly not as a child, no. Yeah. And so by the time there's all the rebellions of his older brothers against his father, in the later ones anyway, in the first ones, the first one with the young king, John's still small. But by the last ones, as I say, he's sort of a very young man at that point, and he even gets involved in it. One of the famous stories is that when Henry heard that John was on the list of traitors in the last one, that's what made him sort of give up the ghost. Because Henry II loved John for some reason.
There's a distinct feeling of mollycoddling with John.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing that I think has ruined him. Mollycoddled by Eleanor and Henry.
He's the baby of the family who can do no wrong. Yeah. Even when he's 25.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
And doing wrong.
Yeah. And there's a bit again. I mentioned it in the Richard one, so I only say it in passing here. But there's when Richard comes back from Crusade and has got a choice to pardon John or not. He says, "Yeah, he's just a boy. He doesn't know what he was doing." And again, he was in his mid to late 20s at that point. So it's just, the whole
family clearly thought of him as just the young, golden-haired little boy. It's like, no, he's an adult now, and he's causing an insurrection in your kingdom. I don't think he's actually quite as innocent and naive as you think he is.
And sort of just the baby of the family, runt of the litter, like Ted Kennedy, something like that. Just a bit of a joke. Oof. There's a younger... There's a Neil Bush, isn't there?
Is there?
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, there's Jeb.
Yeah.
And then
I thought Jeb was the young.
No, there's Neil Bush. And it's like, who cares about Neil Bush, right?
Never even heard of him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go.
I've only heard of Jeb because of his phenomenal political career.
Yeah.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.